Hey Pokemon Masters, Babiee here, and earlier this year the Pokemon Company announced that instead of doing a middle game, Yellow, Platinum or Emerald, they would instead be doing the DLC, the expansion pass that contained the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. Now, the Isle of Armor is out, and of course playing that has been a blast, but it's got me thinking. Reminiscing about my first Pokemon outing, the definitive Generation 1 experience, Pokemon Yellow, and how Pokemon Yellow is maybe better or different to Pokemon Red and Blue version. So the question really is the Isle of Armor, the Crown Tundra, are these things better than having a middle version? Do they create the complete experience? What does a DLC give us? What do we lose and what do we gain? I think there's pros and cons for each, so let's go. Okay, so yes, Pokemon Masters, I remember when I was but a wee child in the year 1999, 2000, a little kid on my way out for my first family holiday in Menorca, small little Spanish island. I remember I had this toy Squirtle that you could fill it with water and you could push the belly of it in and it would like squirt water like a water pistol. I remember there being like Hubba Bubba gum that I think had a Pokemon promotion, I might be mistaken on that. Certainly Pokemon Tazos were about. I mean, this is just peak Pokemon collecting, this. Needless to say, I loved Pokemon, but the one thing I hadn't done in terms of Pokemon is play the actual game. And so there, on the island of Menorca, for the first time, with this very same Game Boy Color and only a Micro Machines game and Obi-Wan Kenobi's adventure on it, as you can see by the picture, I got the braid to look like Obi-Wan. As you can see by the picture, I finally got my first Pokemon game, Pokemon Yellow. And thank goodness, all those other chumps, they've been playing Pokemon Red and Blue version. I was getting the actual, the complete version, because Gold and Silver, they were already out. So Pokemon Yellow was the complete Generation 1 experience. If there were bugs in Pokemon Red and Blue, I didn't have to worry about them. I had Pokemon Yellow version. Anything from the base game that was a problem had been fixed here. The sprites were more alive and filled with colors, and there was new features like Pikachu would follow you here. There was a mini game with Pikachu surfing. And my need to have only the best continued into the next Christmas when I was at home and I got my very own copy of Pokemon Crystal. I'd seen my brother play Pokemon Silver before, but Pokemon had never moved. Not like this! With the sprite animation sometimes being a combination of these sprites from Pokemon Gold and Silver combined to make a movement, it really felt like you were getting the complete picture and even more story with Suicune. By the time Pokemon Emerald came out, I gotta admit, I wasn't really following the release dates. I was a kid, I just saw Pokemon Emerald was out and I was like, nice, I have Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Though I do remember an ad for Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire and believing that there must be some middle game that had both of them because they were both sort of on the box together, I don't know. There was always this need to play the biggest and best version, but I was never quite sure why until Pokemon Platinum came out. Look, when Diamond and Pearl came out, and I loved Diamond and Pearl, again, I picked them up while I was on holiday. I didn't really see much of the world when I was a kid. I saw much of this world, but not the real one. But common criticisms for these games. The pacing is weird, they're a little bit slow, there's some frame ratey type issues that just mean the games feel really slow. And not to worry, Pokemon Platinum is gonna solve it by moving around a Pokemon gym and just changing the way the game plays. In fact, in the original Diamond and Pearl, the Pokedex was quite limited. It was heavily expanded in Pokemon Platinum. I truly believe that if Pokemon Platinum didn't come out and people just had Pokemon Diamond and Pearl to remember, people wouldn't remember this generation fondly and they would not be calling for the remakes that they are today. And in fact, critically, I think that's exactly what happened in Pokemon X and Y, a game that didn't have the opportunity to solve the problems that were there in the base game. Look, no game is perfect, and every game, it needs some work. People often credit Heart Gold and Soul Silver as being the pinnacle of Pokemon, but that was revision 5. Think about it, Kanto's in those games, so at this point already we visited Kanto in Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Gold and Silver, and then Crystal where it was re-revised, and then we've got all of the new mechanics from Generation 4, as well as Pokemon following you. How could these games not be good? They had practiced them a lot. So the big question, how and where does this relate or tie in with the Isle of Armor? the expansion pass and the Crown Tundra. Now look, I can't really comment on whether these things have been a massive success or a massive failure. We are only halfway through. Also, there is an argument to do with price. To play the Isle of Armor, you need to buy the expansion pass, and you first need to have bought the base games. Now, I don't know about you, but I always bought the base games before buying the middle version. So if anything, this is just the same price for me. Actually, it's if you include inflation, I think it's a little bit cheaper than buying 2 games. But I know there are those of you out there who would just wait for Platinum version or just wait for Emerald version. And so to those people, I see your argument. I guess it'll affect 50% of people. I don't know how many people play like that, right? It's gonna affect some, not the others. But I want to talk about specifically what's being lost by way of having a DLC. And also what's being gained, because I think there is some stuff. In terms of what's being lost, again, I want to go back to Pokemon Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. Diamond and Pearl was riddled with a couple of issues, from quite a slow story to, as I said, like a Pokedex that wasn't fully expanded. I think there was only like 2 fire types in the base Pokedex. There was a lot in Diamond and Pearl to not like. The Pokemon Platinum fixed. Comparing that to the Isle of Armor and Pokemon Sword and Shield, we can look at Pokemon Sword and Shield and we can say, well, okay, what are its problems? And I know you've all been debating that online for like over a year. Smaller Pokedex, no worries. We release an update and we can just have them all in the DLC, and they're free. You don't even have to buy the DLC. You just get all those Pokemon if you want them. So in that sense, yeah, the Isle of Armor kind of succeeds. But then when we take a look at things like story structure, difficulty, anything like that, anything from the main game, nothing's being changed. One of the things I'm less fond of in Pokemon Sword and Shield is, like, by the time that you get to gym number 4, you can't, like, just go and explore and do gyms in different order. They are locked off by, like, Team Yell members and weird roadblocks that just don't really make a lot of sense and are unnecessary. I want to go and explore the region. And let's say that that criticism was resounding across the whole Pokemon community. The DLC doesn't really and can't really fix that unless they do some kind of weird patch that isn't really anything to do with the DLC. That's something that Pokemon Platinum brought to the table, and again with X and Y. And I think the reason people remember those games so, like, ooh, they weren't very good. You know, they were way too easy. The experience share was busted. That's a pretty common thing, I think, in Pokemon X and Y that people complain about. If they had made a Pokemon Z, they could have, like, fixed the experience share issue, and that big problem could have been solved, but it never was. And so people don't think about that generation and think, yeah, that was great. They always remember that problem. Pokemon Sword and Shield, whatever story issues it has, whatever design issues it has, they are still there, even with the DLC present. That said, counter argument, Pokemon Platinum, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, I have to play through the game twice if I want to get these games on release. At least this way, I don't have to play through the game twice, I can just continue my adventure with all the new content. And that was a big criticism of Pokemon Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, because Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon felt like games that were the same as the base game with a little bit of extra content on the end. In fact, that was really where the idea of DLC was kind of like really talked about a lot. Like, come on, this should have been a DLC. This should not have been a whole new game. Can the Isle of Armor fix any story issues you might have had, or frame rates or animations? Can that DLC do that for the main game? No, it can't. It can't do what Crystal did for Gold and Silver, where it suddenly makes all of the Pokemon be animated. The Isle of Armor did introduce Pokemon following us back into this generation, which is very exciting, but again, that only happens on the island and not in the rest of the game. The rest of the game goes largely untouched. So again, the question is, would you prefer a middle game, or would you prefer a DLC, an expansion? Because there is something that an expansion provides that a middle game doesn't. As I said earlier, there are some of you who would not buy Pokemon Diamond and Pearl or Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. You would wait for the middle version and just play that. And you can do that. Pokemon Platinum does not require that you must have played Diamond and Pearl, but Pokemon Black and White 2, well, the clue is in the name. Instead of doing Pokemon Grey, Pokemon released Pokemon Black and White 2, and these games, as the name implies, are set and come after Black and White 1. Black and White 2 are often credited as being more difficult Pokemon experiences. The circular map of Unova suddenly becomes a whole web with routes connecting towns all over the place and new towns to kind of just really make the gameplay more interesting. In fact, at the time that these games came out, I didn't really enjoy them that much because I felt that it got too complicated. However, for my birthday this year, my lovely girlfriend, the last Shaman, bought me this DSi. I've never owned a DSi before, and it's got Reshiram and Zekrom on it, and I've been playing Black and White 2, and wow, I can appreciate how much more complex and interesting the story of these games are. The pacing of the game feels so much nicer, it feels so much more explorative than the circular map that it was in the first games. There is so much post-game content and a massive challenge at the end of it all. So Black and White 2, a success story, which possibly being as complicated and difficult as it was led to the rise of an easier title like X and Y, which is famously like where the problems begin. I don't know if I agree with that, but the only reason that Black and White 2 could get away with being more difficult than Black and White 1 is because the game's titles suggest that you should have probably played the first ones before playing the second ones. You can go into Black and White 2 having not played a Pokemon game before and it still works, but the idea is it is for a veteran Pokemon player. It's for someone who has played one of these titles before. In that regard, the Isle of Armor is a success. It's easy to see when you look at the island that the paths are more winding with different entrance and exit points leading to different parts of the island. It is explorative like Pokemon Black and White 2, and there are challenge modes that are available to you that are much, much harder, even if, again, the base game isn't like super difficult. There's like the single type sparring challenge where they up that difficulty, and if you want to unlock everything in the dojo, you're going to need so many watts from doing so many big raids, and would you look at that, they've introduced the 5-star Zero raid for the foreseeable well, I say foreseeable future, by the time you're watching this, it's gone. But it's part of this DLC's release because they want to add some level of difficulty. And that is something that I believe the DLCs have more of an ability to do than past middle games. Granted, Pokemon Emerald, for example, did have the Battle Frontier, and I mean, Pokemon Emerald was the perfect blend of everything. Though again, really, if Emerald had come out in this day and age, Emerald itself should have just been a DLC, and it kind of was in the Delta episode of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Just again, where was our Battle Frontier, Game Freak? But the point is, I think the Isle of Armor, and especially upcoming into the Crown Tundra, these DLCs will require that you've played the main game, and in fact, the Crown Tundra is going to require, or not require, but assumes that you will have probably played the first DLC as well. It is the second part of an expansion pass, which means it can be more difficult, and that is something that Pokemon fans have been after for a long time. Pokemon tends not to make its games too difficult because it wants it to be accessible to everyone. But, and I really am repeating myself here, again, the DLC, you've already bought the game. You've already presumably experienced the game. These DLCs are allowed to be harder, and I think that is where the DLCs have kind of a little bit of an advantage over the middle game. All in all, I don't think I have an exact conclusion. Are middle games better? Are direct sequels better? Are these DLC better? I certainly know that I prefer the DLC to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, that is a fact. But where that leaves us, and where that leaves my opinion about the DLC, I think there's some pros, and I think there's some cons. I think in future DLCs, we're gonna see more like difficult challenges and legendary Pokemon hunts, and that stuff's gonna be really interesting. But also in the long run, we're gonna lose the ability to fix any base game issues. And I think that may end up being a problem. For now, only time will tell, and I do wanna hear your thoughts in the comments so that we can have a little chat about it. With that being said, thank you for watching, and of course, so hi Pokemon Masters.
This is Ash Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a Pokemon Master!
A special thank you to those of you who support this channel, whether it's on Patreon or Twitch, any of you who are going above and beyond. And a big thank you, a big shout out to the big supporter of this month, Lemon Baby. Thank you.